Good morning. Thanks for joining us. This is our May 2024 Colorado River Basin water supply briefing. I'm Cody Mosier, a hydrologist at the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. First, starting with soil moisture, specifically the antecedent soil moisture conditions back in the fall from our model. Talk about those, why they're important. And then also look at how stream flow came in during the last month, during the month of April. Jump into a precipitation review of both April 2024 as well as the water year to date. Look at current snowpack conditions and how they've trended over the past month. Look at water supply forecast, mostly across the upper Colorado River Basin, but we are going to talk a little bit about the lower basin as well. And then look at the upcoming weather forecast over the next week or two. Talk a little bit about peak flow forecast information that's available on our webpage, and then take any questions at the end. So as usual, we're recording this webinar and we'll be posting the recording and the slides on our webpage later today. If you have a question, feel free to type it into the question box within the webinar interface, or again, we'll open it up at the end. If you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you if you have a question. All right, so here, looking on the graphic on the left, these are our fall 2023 back in mid-November, our model soil moisture conditions as a percent of average. So you'll notice starting down in southwest Colorado, we see in the San Juan, Dolores, and southern Gunnison especially, these reds and oranges. Those are indicating below normal soil moisture conditions heading into the winter and spring runoff season. And as you move north, up into western, northwest Colorado, west central Colorado, soil moisture conditions a little bit better there, near normal, and all the way in the upper Green River Basin, some of the better soil moisture conditions entering the spring runoff season, as well as the Uinta Range area, the Duchesne, north slope of the Uintas. So that's a summary of where we're sitting at with our soil moisture conditions entering this season. And the graphic on the right here, this is showing the April 2024 observed unregulated stream flow as a percent of average, with the same color coding there. So the blues indicating above average stream flow during the month of April, whereas the oranges and reds, you'll notice down in southwest Colorado, came in below average, due in part to these below average soil moisture conditions entering the spring runoff season. So when it comes to spring runoff, it's really a result of these soil moisture conditions that we're showing on the left here. Spring weather plays a big role, and of course the snowpack conditions, snowpack distribution. So all those factors going into the timing and the magnitude of spring runoff. So here we're looking at a few examples of, this is not necessarily unregulated stream flow, but this is was observed. The blue traces at gauges, starting in the upper left and the upper green. This is an example. The green near LaBarge, and this is observed flow. So you can see multiple warm-ups and cool-downs during the month of April. One at the kind of the first week of April, and then we cool down a bit, melt, died down before it picked up during a little after the middle of the month, and then again another cool down and melt picking up near the end of the month. So this is seen pretty much throughout the upper Colorado River Basin. Upper graphic here, a point in the Yampa, pretty similar. down in southwest Colorado, again, this is Dolores, pretty muted stream flow response the first half of April. Again, drier than normal soil moisture conditions playing a role there. And then bottom left, this is our model simulated inflow into Lake Powell during April. So a nice kind of overview of what flows did and some of the snowmelt timing and trends that happened during this past month. Now into April precipitation. So a couple graphics here in the table. Generally, April precipitation as a percent of average was quite poor across most of the region. You'll notice lots of reds, again, indicating 50 to 70% is that red color. So the graphic on the left, this is our entire forecast domain and the basins in our model, and then the same data set in the middle graphic just trimmed to those areas that contribute most to the spring runoff picture. So again, quite a poor month when it comes to percent of average precipitation during April. Table on the right here, the column in the middle, this is summarized by sub-basin. Top section is the upper Colorado River Basin, and this bottom section is the lower Colorado River Basin. You'll notice most values, below 70%, above Flaming Gorge just 50%. There were a few bright spots. You'll notice Colorado River headwaters area, as well as parts of central Arizona, came in near normal during April, but those were kind of the few bright spots. It was pretty dry month of April that we saw. And then looking at water year 2024 precipitation, so this would be October through April precipitation as a percent of average. And focusing on the graphic in the middle, those significant contributing areas to spring runoff. Southwest Colorado, again, lagging behind when it comes to water year precipitation. Generally 85% or so in the San Juan and Dolores. Most other places across the upper Colorado River Basin, kind of around that 100% of normal when it comes to October through April precipitation. Here we're looking at May 1st snowpack conditions, or SWE, which is snow water equivalent. It's the amount of water in the snowpack. The graphic on the left showing snowpack conditions as a percent of median on May 1st. The squares are NRCS snowtail stations located out there on the ground, and then the shaded areas in this graphic would be our model snowpack as a percent of median. So there are a lot of colors going on in this graphic. Probably better to focus in on some basin specific values. This table showing May 1st snowpack conditions. This is also showing where we were at on April 1st and the change during the past month. So snowpack conditions as a percent of normal declined everywhere due to the dry April and the snowmelt that we saw during the month. Upper Colorado River Basin SWE conditions range from 70 to 100% of normal on May 1st. Again, Southwest Colorado, so some of the worst conditions, San Juan, Dolores, 70 to 80%, even the Gunnison around 80%. And then dust on snow, we did talk a little bit about this back in March. So that can impact the runoff timing and magnitude. So the dust on snow severity is around average this year, except for the Roaring Fork, where the dust on snow conditions are more severe. And this information, again, Colorado Dust on Snow program, if you're interested in learning more about that and the impacts to spring runoff. Here we're looking at the snowpack evolution for the water year. This is SWE above Lake Powell. So you'll see back on January 1st, it was a very dry start to the water year, the first 3 months. So on January 1st, hitting just about 60% of normal snowpack above Lake Powell. And January, February, and March, really quite productive months, wetter than average precip across most areas. So we started climbing. By April 1st, we were sitting right around normal. And you can see what the snowpack above Lake Powell's done since April 1st. Some pretty decent melt happening and a couple accumulation events during the month of April, sitting about 90% of normal on the 1st of May. All right, here we're looking at, this is an overview of our Upper Colorado River Basin water supply forecast that we issued on May 1st. So the graphic on the left, these are all the water supply forecasts that we issue for and their locations. All of these triangles on the map, they're color coded by percent of average. Lots of, again, Southwest Colorado, below average water supply forecast. And then as you move north, a little bit better, kind of near normal conditions at a lot of spots. And then all the way up in the upper green, sitting below normal for the most part up there. So over the past month, again, due to that drier than normal April, the water supply outlook generally declined across the Upper Colorado River Basin with central areas. So, Duchesne, White Yampa, Colorado River headwaters sitting near to above normal, whereas the upper green in Southwest Colorado, most of those forecasts near to below normal. And the table on the slide here showing some values for some site-specific points, starting with Lake Powell. So we're forecasting, this is an April through July volume we're forecasting at Lake Powell, 5,100 CAF. CAF stands for 1,000 acre feet, and that's 80% of the 1991 through 2020 average. And we'll get into some of these basins in more detail in the following slides. So again, the better conditions, central areas, Southwest Colorado, due to those poor soil moisture conditions and snowpack conditions that aren't as good as neighboring areas, worse conditions down there. So here's Lake Powell, this triangle circled here, the bottom left. Summarizes the hydrologic conditions throughout the entire Upper Colorado River Basin. And we have a graphic showing the average streamflow contribution into Lake Powell. And then we have it broken down into the contribution from our May forecast. So the green contributing a little bit more, that does include the White Yampa. So that's driving this slice a little bit higher, as well as Colorado River headwaters, those areas above Cameo, producing a little bit more than average, whereas the San Juan and Dolores, including Dolores is in this other category, those are lower than normal. And then you can see in the bottom graphic here, this is showing the min, the max historically, and where the current forecast is sitting compared to average. It's that 1991 through 2020 period for that average. All right, here we're looking at our Lake Powell water supply forecast evolution plot. We're going to be showing a few of these, so I'll cover on how to interpret one of these. So we're plotting the volume in thousands of acre feet on the y-axis, time along the x-axis. We're showing average and median lines. Those correspond to that 1991 through 2020 period. And then we start publishing our daily ensemble stream flow prediction, or ESP, model guidance back in mid-December, and then we started issuing official forecasts. These are the pink vertical lines and dots at the beginning of the year. And we issue, for most locations, issue an official forecast at the beginning of the month, starting in January, and here we're at May 1st here. So you can get a sense of how the spring runoff guidance has trended over the season. So you can start here on January 1st. Again, we were sitting well below normal snowpack conditions on January 1st, and then January, February, March, wetter than normal. So we trended upwards. April 1st sitting here, and then dry April brought us back down to some most probable forecast. This pink dot in the middle, this would be the volume that has a 50% chance of being exceeded or not being exceeded. In this case, 5,100 calf or 5.1 million acre feet. And then it's a probabilistic water supply forecast, so we provide a range of values, with this top dot being the volume that has a 10% chance of being exceeded. That corresponds to a wetter future weather scenario. And the bottom pink dot would be the 90% exceedance volume. We do provide a lot of information in the plot header, such as our official forecast, volume, percent of central tendencies, percentiles, etc. We're also providing the ESP guidance based on our most recent model run. So that was yesterday, and then observed volume here also shown. So again, we're forecasting in April through July period. It's the gray shaded area on the plot here. And the, if we were to see an average runoff season, it would follow, or it would end up at the top of this brown dotted line corresponding to the average volume. You can see how the observed volume this season has come in so far since the 1st of April. So it's come in below average thus far, and we're forecasting it to come up to this middle pink dot here. So below average, it's about 80% of average is this value here. Okay, so a little bit within the Upper Colorado River Basin, looking at some areas within the upper basin, starting with the upper green. So this graphic is showing on the left, it's showing our water supply forecast points, these triangles as a percent of average, as well as the shaded areas. That's our model snowpack on May 1st as a percent of normal. And then the evolution plot in the upper right that we just discussed, as well as this is also showing the snowpack conditions from our model and how they've trended during the water year. And here we're looking at Flaming Gorge Reservoir is what these graphics are summarizing. So remember, the upper green just received just 50% of April precipitation, and that led to significant decreases in the water supply forecast. You can see that trend in the water supply forecast evolution plot. On April 1st, we were forecasting about 99% of average, with our May 1st forecast declining to 800,000 acre feet, which is 83% of average. And the snow plot above Flaming Gorge, very poor on January 1st, climbed up to a little bit above 100% by April 1st. And then we had some melt, dry weather, down to 85% on May 1st. Here we're looking at the White Yampa River Basin. The forecast range for all of our forecast points in the White Yampa ranging from 95 to 110%. So this is one of those areas that's around normal due to better soil moisture and snowpack conditions. The graphics on the right are summarizing the Yampa Deer Lodge Park, the water supply forecast evolution plot. Again, trending lower since April 1st. Currently forecasting a volume that's about 107% of average. Snowpack conditions as of the beginning of May, sitting a little bit below 100% in the White Yampa. Now making our way south. This is the Colorado River headwaters area. The forecast range there 90 to 130%. Lots of colors in this graphic on the left. You can see some of the better snowpack conditions in this area in the Fraser River Basin here. And then as you move kind of downstream, especially parts of the Roaring Fork, this is the divide between the Roaring Fork and the North Fork of the Gunnison down here. Snowpack conditions not quite as good down there, below normal. And we're looking at Colorado River at Cameo in the graphics on the right. Forecasting 2180 CAF, which is 96% of average, compared to the last couple of years here. So it'd be, if that was to verify, it would be a higher volume than what we saw in 2022, but still decent amount below what was observed last year. In the snowpack, similar story. January 1st, below normal, and then we were up around normal by April 1st, and then starting to experience melt and a little bit below normal snowpack conditions in early May. Now into the Gunnison River Basin, forecast here ranging anywhere from 50 to 100% of normal for those May 1st water supply forecasts. Just looking at the snowpack conditions again, this is the Roaring Fork into the North Fork, below average there, below normal down in the Uncompahgre, Southern Gunnison Basin, with better conditions along the Continental Divide above Blue Mesa Reservoir, which we're shown here on the right. So there we're forecasting 570,000 acre feet, which is 90% of average. And May 1st, snowpack conditions about 86% of normal above Blue Mesa. And now into the Dolores River Basin, forecast here ranging just 50 to 70% of normal, with McPhee Reservoir here. Our May 1st forecast, 142,000 acre feet. This is 56% of that 1991 through 2020 average. Again, this area well below normal soil moisture conditions entering the runoff season. April flows, unregulated stream flow there came in at just 38% of average during the month of April. The graphic on the bottom right, this is looking at the snowpack conditions, specifically 3 snowtail locations we're looking at here. Very significant melt occurred at these snowtail stations during April, sitting about 90% of normal here at these 3 snowtail stations above McPhee Reservoir. Now into the San Juan River Basin, with the focus here is on Navajo Reservoir. The graphic upper right, forecasting 420,000 acre feet, which is 67% of average, which matches our models. This is hydrologic model snow above Blue Mesa. You can see way up here last year, kind of right around that normal peak around April 1st, and then down about 67% normal beginning of the month. So again, Southwest Colorado, the lowest water supply forecast due to snowpack conditions being lower and soil moisture conditions being lower than other areas across the upper Colorado River Basin. Here we're showing our historical forecast verification for our May water supply forecast, and we're showing the verification percent air here on the graphic, with the table showing some percentages for some select locations. So generally our May forecast air looks like about 10 to 15, maybe up to 20%. So our air tends to decrease each month into the spring as we know more about how the year snowpack has come in. We do better headwater basins that are well gauged, and we know in real time what's happening with some of the water being moved around. We don't do as well in basins that can be impacted by rain or early melt, and where we don't know in real time how some of the water is being diverted and used. Now, a bit about the ENSO before we jump into the lower Colorado River Basin water supply outlook. So this is from the Climate Prediction Center, CPC, issued about a month ago. So we're expecting a transition from the current El Nino to ENSO neutral in the next couple months. And there's a 60% chance of La Nina conditions developing into the summer. So we've talked about this a bunch this year, but just kind of a summary: El Nino expecting generally, but not always, wetter than average winter weather across the lower basin, whereas La Nina conditions drier than average winter weather across the lower basin. And then a couple graphics on the right showing some of the models that go into forecasting ENSO and probabilities associated with certain conditions developing, in this case La Nina. You can see kind of taking over the blue bars this summer into the winter. All right, so into the lower Colorado River Basin water supply forecast. So down here, we forecasted January through May volume. And typically compare the volumes compared to the median, historical median volume. Here's a table on the lower right showing all these locations. It's about a dozen points that we provide water supply forecasts across the lower basin. So these forecasts typically range from 80 to 100% of median. And some blues kind of near normal in general, with some areas below and some above normal. And then this triangle here, this is the salt near Roosevelt in the water supply forecast evolution plot. So in the lower basin, we do take into account the ENSO status. So this past winter was El Nino, which typically means wetter than average winter weather. So we were making that assumption using in our January and February forecast. You can see our raw ESP model guidance, a solid blue line, is below what we were actually forecasting as the most probable volume back in January and February. And the wetter than normal winter weather wasn't really panning out back then. So we dropped the forecast on March 1st to be more in line with our ESP model guidance. And then we had a wet March, and that bumped things back up to where we were forecasting at the beginning of the season. All that to say that this area is very challenging to forecast. You have ENSO playing a role or not playing a role, and then it can be one or two really wet events that make a difference down in the lower basin. So pretty challenging forecast down there. All right, now into the 7-day precipitation forecast. So we had this strong spring storm system that moved through the area. It's kind of another system moving through today, tomorrow. So that's bringing precip and below average temperature. Graphic here, this is showing each day. So this would be this morning through tomorrow morning, the precip forecast on each day for the next 7 days with the 7-day total on the bottom right. So we're expecting the weather pattern to remain active through this weekend with chances of precipitation, especially for northern and eastern basins. You can see with that precip, upper green, kind of northwest Colorado, northern Utah, and then we're expecting temperatures to gradually warm and be around normal by this weekend. So this is some of the 7-day forecast precipitation totals across the upper Colorado River Basin, anywhere from a ½ inch up to 1.5 inches. Looks like across those higher elevation areas, we're not expecting much, less than 1/10 of an inch across the lower Colorado River Basin over the next 7 days. And then here we're looking at the 8 to 14 day precipitation and temperature outlook. These forecasts outlooks are provided by the Climate Prediction Center. So the graphic on the left here, they are favoring near to slightly above normal precipitation for this 8 to 14 day period over most of the western US, much of our forecast area. And the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, seeing above average temperatures being likely for that May 14th through 20th period. So in summary, just a compilation of graphics here. So it was, again, a very dry April across most of the Colorado River Basin. Observed unregulated stream flow during April, below average, well below average across parts of southwest Colorado, above average across some of the central areas, and kind of near average in the upper green. Snowpack in the upper Colorado River Basin, about 90% of normal at the beginning of May. And then the precip forecast here showing best chances for precipitation across the higher elevation areas in the north and east. And then the graphic on the right's summarizing the May 1st water supply outlook with, again, central areas looking better than northern and southern areas across the upper Colorado River Basin, and across the lower Colorado River Basin, kind of near normal in general water supply volumes for that January through May period expected. Here we're looking at our current peak flow forecasts, shown in a couple different ways, so you can access this information on our webpage. So on the left, we're showing our current peak flow forecast as a % of average, and it lines up pretty well with you know, the current hydrologic situation with the central areas. Expecting the peak flow forecasts a little bit better or closer to average than those northern and southern areas. The graphic on the right, same points, and here we're categorizing them by the probability that they will exceed a defined flood threshold. So the gray points do not have a defined flood stage whereas everything else is in green, which indicates a less than 10% chance of exceeding the defined National Weather Service of the flood threshold. A little bit more on peak flow forecast now. So this is looking at one of the sites, the Crystal River near Redstone. So if you're on our webpage, you click on one of these points, it'll take you to the peak flow dashboard page for that location. There's lots of information on these pages. When the model was run most of these peak flow forecasts daily, but not all. I will mention that we do have about a dozen peak flow forecast locations that are downstream of significant regulation, reservoirs, diversions. So we do issue some of those forecasts, and we'll be updating those today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for those. But back to this dashboard page, just tons of information here. Where the current forecast ranks, percentile, the peak to date, average peak, last year's peak, all this information. There's also an interactive graphic on these pages with a similar look and feel to our water supply forecast evolution plots. So again, we're running our model daily with the solid green line in this case being the peak flow value that's most probable and bound by the 1090 range. And we're also showing what in this case, the pink line here would be what our model was simulating kind of while the stream gauge was ice affected. And then as we're coming out of ice affected gauges, then we start to show the observed flow value here. So in this case, we're forecasting based on our latest model run this value here where my mouse is, which is 1409 cubic feet per second, which is 75% of average. We're showing this on the graphic. And you can also see historically where things peaked on a given year. We show that. We're also providing some tables with peak flow forecast magnitude and timing. So when it comes to the peak flow forecast timing, this is generally pointing to the normal time of peak, which we show here in this gray shaded area until the actual time of peak is near. So we don't typically have too long of a lead time with our peak flow forecast since it's so weather dependent. But we're showing historically the normal time of peak, and it would encourage you to look at our 10-day stream flow forecast as peak flow is approaching. All right, so this is the last one of these that we have this season. We also put on a Utah Great Basin one, that's at 11:30. So the last one of the season for our water supply forecast webinars. We have some email lists if you're interested, just general stakeholder email list. So, that's going to receive things such as we issue a water supply forecast discussion twice a month. So you'd get a notification when we issue one of those. Or we also have basin specific lists if you're interested in being notified when certain forecast products get issued. And here's how you can get in touch with us and who's forecasting which areas this water year. There's some email addresses there. One of the best ways to get in touch with us is through our operations email address and phone number here, boxed in red. Some links here if you want to get to our page or access our archive of our past water supply presentations. So please reach out if you have questions or comments for us. I'm gonna end there, and I'll open it up for any questions that may be out there. I'm not seeing anything in the, okay, here's one question from Elizabeth Moran. When will the special peak flow forecast list be updated? We're planning on getting to that today or tomorrow is our plan. And again, those are some of those locations on main stem rivers downstream of significant upstream regulation or diversions. So those points take a little bit more time for us to go through. But yeah, today, tomorrow, Elizabeth. All right, with that, I'm not seeing any more questions. Again, please reach out if you have any. Thanks for attending and have a good week. Thanks.